I will begin with the agenda and share you the components that we will be putting forward in today's event. So the session, as you must have all received the agenda beforehand, is divided into two. The first session is largely focused on how to conduct an urban design competition, and we have prepared a manual around it. And the next session is about the panel discussion. So I'll quickly run you all through the agenda for the first session. Please let me know if you can see my screen. So the session begins with a welcome and introduction by Jörg Janssen. Then it will be followed by a presentation done by Kochi Collective. It will be presented by Rahul Srivastava from URBS and Monalita Chatterjee from Design Combine. Following this presentation will be for 15 minutes. Following this presentation, we will have a Q&A session for 10 minutes. So whoever wants to ask any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we will take these questions during the Q&A session. As well as these questions can be directed to different stakeholders or organizers of the event. You can also direct these questions to the participants who participated in the urban design competition, and also the winning teams who are also part of this event at the moment. Then with this, we follow this session with a release of the manual. The manual we have prepared, it will be unveiled by respected mayor. He is also part of this session with us. So he will do the honors of unveiling the manual, as well as there will be a small speech by him. So with this, I would request Mr. Georg Janssen to start with his introductory and welcome note.
Thank you so much, Samita. I hope I'm audible and visible. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for the next 1.5 hours. And yeah, I would like to give you all a very warm welcome with a few thoughts that I have jotted down. I think we are all very happy now to share our experiences that we made in the last years in this area. And to me, when I need to explain this idea of urban design competition, it all starts with the question, who decides how our cities look like? Who decides how land is being used, how our physical environment is shaped? So basically, who decides where to do what? And I think as all democratic countries have the aspiration that the citizens should play a major part of this, or a major role of this decision-making process. And equally to, when you build a house, maybe with an architect, so where the architect consults the later inhabitants of the house, of course, the city planner, the planners need to do a similar thing with the residents of the city. And I think here it sort of starts the problem, because we have so many people. This is not an easy thing to do. And because a city is way more complex than a house, another level of complexity adds on to that. So I think with this tool, we are sort of fighting the tendency of behind closed door decisions that we have all over the world when it comes to city planning. In the end, the most important decisions that are being done in a city, there is a tendency, right, that because of simplicity, only a few people, only a few decision makers make decisions and leave out the major amount of people. So I see here a new role of the planner also, a little more to let go, being aware that he or she does not know anything, right? Saying, I don't know is a strength. The planner knows its limitations, and rather moderates a process, bringing experts and stakeholders and citizens together. Plus, also, I find it very interesting how we can make use of such processes in order to bring the private economy into the play. So all this has been demonstrated here in Kochi under harsh Corona conditions, I can tell you. And I'm so happy to say that we can see that Kochi is really a role model on how to do this. We have today an impressive lineup of guests. On the city side, of course, the mayor and CHED represented by Dr. Rajan, private planners from India and Germany sharing their expertise, and of course, also the academia. So I'm looking forward to dive more into details with you, understand the merits of this tool, and also to celebrate. And with this, back to you, Samita.
Thank you so much, Georg. And with this, I would like to hand over to Rahul Srivastava from URBS, who will be presenting the next session, followed by a presentation, followed by Monalita Chatterjee. I'll just quickly share my screen so we all can view the presentation. Please let me know if you can see the presentation slides.
Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So Rahul, over to you.
Thank you so much, Samita, and thank you so much, Jörg. So I would simply like to emphasize the points which Jörg has already made, that urban design competitions can be used more effectively as globally reputed instruments for sustainable urban development. They can help us gather integrated, demand-oriented, and multi-sectoral ideas and serve to improve stakeholder capacities and ownerships. To organize a competition, we should ideally work with 4 main actors: a developer, a main competition organizer, project manager, and process manager. Each contributes different capacities to the process of conducting a competition. For the EnteKochi competition, the Kochi Municipal Corporation was the developer and organizer, while GIZ carried out the roles of project manager, and Urbanista and Kochi Collective were the process managers. To conduct a successful competition, we developed this process chart that emerged from the EnteKochi competition. In phase 0, we identified a competition site through consultations with local authorities and citizens. In phase 1, we verified the site and topics through site visits and in-depth interactions with the residents and users. In phase 2, we marked the development of the co-creative design brief. In phase 3, we announced the design call and invited interested participants for registration. Eventually, phase 4 involved pre-assessment, shortlisting, jury session, announcing the winners, and a public exhibition. This overall process can be divided into before the competition phase, during the competition phase, and after the competition phase. Before the competition phase includes 3 crucial steps: consultations with the users, residents, civic authorities, and experts, site selection, and the design brief eventually is the outcome of this phase. The consultation process can take place in forms of workshops, meetings, and focus group discussions to gather qualitative and quantitative data. For the EnteKochi competition, we met students, faculty members, and non-teaching staff of a reputed women's college in the neighborhood. We met people who were auto rickshaw drivers, shopkeepers, local residents, representatives of women's self-help groups, senior citizens, vendor associations. We tried to capture as much diversity as possible. For site selections, it is important to conduct field visits to gain quality information of the site, especially spatial. It also helps to finalize a site that creates greater impact, attraction, and can lead to implementable projects. Attraction is specifically to challenge creative minds, architects, etc., who would like to participate in the competition. In Kochi, we visited 2 waterfront sites out of which we selected Mullasheri Canal as the competition site. In the design brief, it is important to highlight the type of competition, whether it's open or closed, minimum eligibility for participants, concept goals and tasks of the competition, formal submission criteria, the timeline procedure, and of course, the announcing of the prize money. In Kochi, the competition was planned as an open competition, inviting participants from multidisciplinary backgrounds. We invited both young and experienced practitioners with minimum of 3 years of experience. We can hand it over to Monalita now, Samidha.
Thank you so much, Rahul. Monalita, please take it.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Samita. Can we go to the next slide, Samita? Yeah. So after the site selection process happened, the next step was a detailed site survey, and the site survey was separated out into. It's important to understand the physical dimensions of the site, which was done with physical site surveys, as we understand in architectural and urban design terms, but also with very detailed socio-demographic data collection of the people who were residing in that area and who were affected by any development in that area. The first part of that was to identify the boundaries of the site. In Cochin, we also looked at the exact design boundary as well as the boundary which was getting affected by the design process. So the study boundary. So these were two ways we looked at the site. Then we looked at what are the specific data we must gather from the site for the initial first phase. And then we looked at how to construct all of this information as a part of the design brief through drawings and also detailed documentation with photography, videography, etc. Next, please. So from this process of before the competition, we move into the process of during the competition. And during the competition, the first part was having the first design brief ready for the design call. The promotion of the competitions was the first phase. Then we had the design call, which had the first shout of the design program. Then we had the registration process, and after the registration we shared the detailed technical package with all the registered participants. There was a continuous process of answering FAQs, pre-assessment, shortlisting of entries. Then we had the detailed jury sessions, and then announcing the winner, which was one outcome, and the display of the design solutions that we received. A public display for everybody to see within the city was the second outcome we attempted. Next, please. So the promotion of the competition, we used several media. We were hit by Corona right through this process. So we had to depend very largely on a lot of online media. And also we had other forms of like articles coming up in the newspapers and coverages in radio, etc. And also we tried to promote it specifically within groups which we felt were people who would participate in the competition through architectural groups, urban design groups, and similar landscape architect groups, etc. Next. During the competition, so after the design call, we had the registration process in Cochin. We received 243 registrations, and then we shared a detailed technical package which had much more detailed information about the site and many detailed zoomed in aspects of the site, detailed photographs, etc. We shared that technical package with this 243 registrations. Next, please. We received a lot of queries, especially because one of the things we had visualized before was that the teams would try and visit the site, etc. But that was not possible because of the lockdown. This was completely through the lockdown phase in Kerala. And so we had a detailed online FAQ process, which was shared continuously, updated continuously. The questions were gathered from all the people who had queries, and we were feeding answers to them almost on a real-time basis, which was it was an online sheet which was getting updated every so many hours. With all of that, we had 117 participating teams from all over India, many collaborative teams who gave in their full submission for as the design entries. Then we went through a very rigid but detailed rubric analysis to shortlist the top 21 entries, where a core technical team worked with the jury team to come up with the core technical team of evaluators and the jury panel worked together to come up with the final 21 entries, which were up for consideration for the final shortlist of awards. Next, please. We had a phenomenal jury session chaired by Professor K.T. Ravindran, with his immense experience in the urban design field, and personalities from across the world. This was one of the advantages we had with the online process, where we could really tap into a lot of varied skill levels from across the world, as well as have a very good representation from ground with local participants as a part of the jury panel. Next. And the outcome was the 3 really fantastic design solutions which were presented. The first place, Adapt, Connect, Empower. Second, Samita, will you change the slide, please?
I changed the slide. Can you see it?
Can others see?
Yes, I can see the second place.
Okay, I can't see. Now I've got it. Okay, so this was the second place. Again, a team of collaborative team of architects, urban designers, landscape people working with different disciplines. This was called Weaving with Water, and then we had the third one, which was Holding Water. Again, a multidimensional disciplinary team. 3 fantastic solutions which focused on 3 specific parts of I mean, they've focused on the entire project, but we found the jury panel found very interesting solutions given for 3 specific parts, which is how the entire design brief was also constructed. We wanted 3 parts getting specific intensive design solutions. So that's how this was chosen, these 3 winners, as well as the entire 21 shortlisted entries were all then publicly displayed in in the city, in what we call the Park Avenue area, which is close to the municipal corporation building. And along, this is actually the bridge over the Mulasheri Canal. So it was right in the context, and we put up all these panels as a public display, which was open to everybody for over a month. Yeah, so these are pictures. What is very interesting to highlight in this process is that thanks to Corona, the teams actually never managed to arrive at the teams who were working on the design process never managed to arrive at site till this level, where already the winning teams were announced. And this was the first time they could come to the site and actually experience the site for the site. And we have a series of consultation which happened after the competition. Samita? Yeah, so after the competition, our task was to actually get these 3 entries coming together as one consolidated solution for the entire precinct. And for that, we had on-site workshops as well as online workshops. Much of it was online to begin with, and then we had a very intensive on-site workshop where the winning teams had a in-depth immersion into the site context and detailed discussions with the various stakeholders, both the municipal corporation, the mayor, as well as various stakeholders along residents associations, stakeholders along the Mulleshwari Canal, various parts of the Mulleshwari Canal. Yeah, next. And this entire process of the common vision, so these are some pictures of the stakeholder consultations we had on site, and this entire process was then geared towards coming up with the common master plan and flood resilience strategy for the entire canal. As this is Mulleshwari Canal, as all of us locals know, is one of the areas which get extremely waterlogged during even like 2-3 hours of rain. We have different parts of the site, especially the bus stop area and all, getting completely flooded. So we have, as an output, we have a detailed flood resilience design structure which can be implemented across Mulleshwari Canal and is replicable for other canals in the city and outside, as well as detailed project reports for 3 specific subsites along the Mulleshwari Canal, where intensive design work has been taken up by the 3 winning teams with their wonderful and creative imagination. And the final outcome that we have out of this is a document of how to conduct an urban design competition within a city for a sustainable integrated solution, which I would now hand over to Samidha and our respected mayor to present that document.
So before we go to the document, we would actually have we would like to have a short Q&A session. I think we already have got some questions in the chat box. So I would request Ashim, who is also in this meeting, to kind of like give us some maybe 3 questions, 3 interesting questions. Unfortunately, we are 5 minutes behind our schedule. We have one question in the chat box from Purvi. She's asking, can you please elaborate the shortlisting of 21 entries? Monlita, would you like to take this?
Yeah, I can answer this. Purvi, we had a very elaborate rubric in which we gave weightage based on several aspects, starting from the overall master plan to the detailed subsites. And there were various core issues which had already been thematically identified within the design brief as issues that the participants had to address, and those core issues were enumerated and given certain weightages, and based on how each entry responded to those core issues, we gave them a particular score, and through this score came out the final top 21 entries that we had. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And if I may ask, who are these experts? I mean, then finally the 21 entries go to the jury. But
Yeah.
before that, there is like a 173 is like a mammoth number, right? So who is a
117.
Yeah, 117.
So we had a core team of technical evaluators within Kochi Collective who were sitting for almost 2 weeks going through each entry in detail and scoring on this rubric, which was a very objective rubric. We didn't want to do it as a looking at the design, and then we just had weightages given for every item, and these urban designers and technical experts within Kochi Collective were evaluating these all the 117 entries to come up with the final set of 2020. And the jury panel also after that took a full review of the whole 117 entries, and they agreed with the 20 entries which was shortlisted by this technical group, and added one more which they felt was fitting into the top list. So from the 20 it became 21.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'll take quickly 2 more questions because the mayor will be joining us soon. So there's one question from Aisha. How far was the involvement of the landscape architects in this competition?
Is there any of the teams? Then they can probably answer this question. Though we did see, because we had the details of all the team members, so almost all the winning entries, the top 20 entries, had very good landscape teams as a part of their this thing. Pankti, are you there?
Hi.
One of you can.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Monalita. I'm Pankti here. I can speak on behalf of Sponge Collaborative, and I also think with Weaving with Water, there we had, practicing landscape architects, and also, urban designers and other architecture backgrounds who had worked on landscape projects before. So because, the way the competition, the narrative of the competition was such that it was, I think, very critical. Everything was revolving around the Malasari Canal to have landscape architects on board. And I think it was very, very helpful on that front as well. And also, I think it was while we were working on the DPR, it was really helpful that Design Collective also facilitated, more guidance and expertise guidance from a lot of other landscape architects. So I think that was also really helpful in the course of the competition.
So there is one more question in the chat box, and I think that is also going to the participants. Rudresh is asking, what were the major limitations?
Samir, I think we lost you.
Yeah, I think the second question is also for the participants. Pankti, can you see that?
Yeah, I saw the question. So when actually we went on the site and compared to what we had proposed, I think the biggest limitation was actually seeing the edges of the canal and what the edge conditions were like. Also how the MG road, the whole build of the MG road, like limitations in terms of sizes and the width. On the towards like site A, it was more like most of the canal was covered. And, we saw that how we always imagined that we could open up the canal. That was something that we proposed, but once we were on site, we realized that, a lot of retail spaces and, residential spaces used the covered canal as an access. So a lot of those kind of limitations when you actually get down to the site were realized. Also, a lot of things, how we imagine the edge of Priyadarshini Park, where the canal mouth meets the backwaters. We had a very different imagination of it through just using Google Maps or Google Earth. But the actual edge condition, once you visit the site, is very, very different. And then we had to modify our master plans accordingly.
Thank you so much, Pankti.
Hope that answered the question. Thank you.
So with this, I would actually like to inform all the participants that we have the respected mayor with us of Kochi Municipal Corporation and the city of Kochi. And I would like to invite him and ask him to actually unveil the manual. So with this, I would also request you all, if you would like to turn on your cameras. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this evening for this event. It's our honor.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I am also happy to have joined you again.
It's an honor to have you, sir.
I can see Professor K.T. Ravindran also. Good evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Dr. Rajan?
Dr. Rajan is here.
Yeah, I'm with the mayor.
Yes, sir. Hello, he's with me. Dr. Rajan is with me.
Thank you, both of you. Dr. Rajan helped us through the first competition phase, and the respected mayor helped us.
वहाँ पे कहीं पे काजल पड़ा था. Please
I would request the other participants to unmute themselves. Thank you so much. And with this, I would take the opportunity to share the manual, which the mayor, respected mayor, will for the first time, we will be unveiling the manual that we had prepared from his side. I'll quickly share the manual with everyone. Can you all see the screen? Yes, great.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Thank you so much. Sir, the platform is yours, please.
Yeah. So, respected Professor K.T. Ravindran, I don't know whether Georg is there. I can't see him now. I think he's not there.
Yes,
Yes,
I'm here,
sir.
sir. Hello.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Warm welcome from Delhi.
Oh, yeah,
Hello.
you are there. Okay. Charlotte, Fatim is there. I don't know who others are there. Anyway, it is my privilege also to unveil the manual today. So with all your blessings and with all your permission, we have unveiled the manual. That is how to conduct an urban design competition. See, even the name EnteKochi is so, I don't know who selected it, but even that name sounds very close to the heart of most Kochiites because it is a very colloquial language in Malayalam to say it is EnteKochi, that is, it is my Kochi. So it connects with the people here. So what I feel is that the urban design competition that the GIC conducted here was very close to the people because there was so much consultation among the people. And I don't think that nowhere else have I ever seen an urban design competition being conducted initially and then to prepare a DPR, to have a presentation and then to go for a DPR. As a result, what happened is that I feel that a design competition, an urban design competition is was the biggest, what do you say, catchword of the whole exercise to make the Mullasheri Canal proper. I'll have to say that Mullasheri Canal is something which even the honor, I have told it before it's also, it is something that the Honorable High Court is also so keen on being implementing. The reason is that when a rain is there for at least half an hour, then the whole area gets flooded up. And this is one of the prime areas of the Cochin city. So even the High Court was interested to see that the flood mitigation project of the whole Mullasheri Canal is done properly. Anyway, the irrigation department has made an estimate that is a very orthodox engineering estimate that they have made to restructure, to correct the slope of Mullasheri Canal, which has its slope in the eastern and towards the east. And now they have proposed and they are now going to change it to the western side. So that project is now going to happen. And I will also tell you that this season, as a mayor, I went there when the whole rain was there, just during the second wave of COVID. COVID was there, but I went there with the district collector. I stood there for some 1 or 2 hours and we could literally see what is happening in Mullasheri Canal. We brought the pumps there, we made the pumping, and some of the things that I noticed was again, some of the things, even engineering solution I could make. So, so what I'm telling is that, see, Mullasheri Canal is something that we are going to do. So a part of the project will be done by the irrigation department as a part of the Operation Breakthrough, because we have deposited at least 4 crores of rupees from our funds to the irrigation department, and the work is scheduled to begin. And everyone expects that by next year there will be no flooding. But I have heard the presentation and I have watched the presentation of Monolitha very closely. I forgot to mention her name today. I saw her. So I was also very convinced about it. I told in a meeting beforehand also that I took her to the Honorable Justice Devan Ramachandran's chamber, and she explained to him about the whole project. And he was also convinced to a large extent. But the problem exists that even now, I don't think the engineers are too much concerned about the whole project, because it is a blue-green infrastructure, as you have suggested, is something that they don't generally do. But what I feel is that we should go on with this project even after the irrigation department does the project. I don't think that the whole water will be carried away by the Mullasheri Canal alone. So we'll have to think of solutions which has been prepared by the through the urban design competition. So I don't want to elaborate much more because you are already having a panel of discussions on the whole thing. So anyway, congratulations to the GIC team, specifically to Monolitha for doing this whole project and for committing to the whole project. And I believe that we can practically do this project. I am also for this project. I have always, whenever God comes, I have been telling him that there should be some funds at least next year to see that this project takes on and it's implemented on the ground. We can also earmark some funds for the whole project so that something more can be done in Bullesheri Canal, because it is not only the issue of waterlogging, it's also the issue of open spaces, greenery, then places of entertainment, business. Everything is involved in this project, livelihood, everything is involved in this project. That's the beauty of this project. And another thing is that, see, this was designed out of a competition. Many of them have participated. So it's our responsibility to see that this project takes shape on the ground. So once again, thank you, everybody. And as a mayor, I thank you for the city, from the part of the city. I thank every one of you who have spearheaded this program, who have been involved in this program. And also my applause to Dr. Rajan and his team for helping you to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And indeed, Dr. Rajan has helped us throughout the process a lot. And yes, he has answered a lot of questions and supported us throughout. So with this, we shall break for 5 minutes, and then we shall start with the second session. In between, if any of the participants have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we can take those questions from there on.
And we will meet 5:20.
Yes.
Back in the session. Okay, I think we can start with the second session. I'm super excited that we actually have 48 participants in this event. That's fantastic. Can you give me a thumb up in the chat if you can hear me? Or an okay?
We can hear you.
Super, thanks, Iris. Super, and meanwhile, because some people might need 2 more minutes for a bio break or something, we are super interested where you're actually sitting right now. Because for example, I'm sitting in Germany right now, in Hamburg, in the north, and we are actually super excited where our participants actually sit. So if you would like to use the chat and just post either the continent or the country or the city you're actually sitting right now, that would be very helpful for us to get a better overview who's actually on that call. Mumbai also, oh, yeah, Sophie, hi to Hamburg. Very nice. So my name is Charlotte Pusch. I'm working for the GIZ project Sustainable Urban Development Smart Cities, where the urban design competition EnteKochi is embedded. And I will guide you through the second part of this wonderful event. And this session is actually more on planning instruments than on the EnteKochi case itself. And I actually joined this project pretty late. And I have to mention at that point that 2 of my former colleagues, Sahil and Rike, did a fantastic job actually in the phase before the competition, because I only joined during the competition. And I am coordinating this competition with my colleague Fatim, who's also on the call. And I'm super excited actually to moderate the second session, which will be starting with a fantastic keynote by Professor Katie Ravindran. And Samita, I think you can stop sharing the screen now. Oh, Fatim is saying she's sitting in Kochi, more people from Kochi, very nice. So, yeah, so let's start the second session. And I'm honored to actually introduce Professor Katie Ravindran to you. The list is long, what you did already. So I just pointed out some things, yeah. So you are an urban planner by profession. You are a chairman of the Architectural Heritage Advisory Committee. You also have been a member of the advisory board for the United Nations Capital Master Plan in New York City. You taught urban design for more than 3 decades. And yeah, last but not least, for this little introduction, you actually headed the jury session for the EnteKochi competition, which was already mentioned earlier. And we are very honored to have you here on the call to give a keynote address on this topic of the instrument of urban design competitions for integrated sustainable development, its role. And I hope you're in the call right now.
Yes.
Yeah, super. Welcome, Professor Ravindran. So please feel free to share the screen, your presentation, or please let us know if Samita should share your presentation.
Should give me the permission to share. I'm ready to share.
Samita, can you please?
So, can you try sharing now? I enabled share screen for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, we can see your screen. Perfect.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes, we can see
very
it.
clearly, sir.
Yeah. So thank you for inviting me to speak here in this forum. I am indeed privileged to be talking to you about the experience of having done the jury and subsequent lessons that I have also learned from the jury process and from the fabulous submissions that we had received. It's been a learning process for me as well. So I have culled together my learnings for this presentation in 2 sections. First one is about the general benefits that an urban design competition can bring to a city. And the second thing is very specifically about EnteKochi and the lessons that I learned from there. Yeah. So basically, there are just few slides, and most of them are kind of written down material. And I'll just go through them one by one. First thing is that urban design goes beyond the 3rd dimension of the city. Normally, it is said that urban design is distinct from urban planning, since urban planning envisages everything in its 2 dimensions, and urban design looks at it from the 3rd dimension. Yeah? Now, this was a very form-centric view, and from this we have moved on now to a more people-centric view. Yeah? So, urban design looks at the city as a caring environment, an environment which cares for its people and for integrated human interactions. I think that's the primary takeaway that in an urban design scheme is that it's able to actually physically touch the lives of people through the quality of life that one creates on the ground. Now, urban design transforms through design the lived experience of the city. It's not just about how well you regulate activities or how well, what kind of rules and regulations you have in place, but it's about the totality of the lived experience of the human being. So a humanized approach, a caring approach towards the city will actually touch the lived experience of the users of the city. Now, while the problem solving also remains a key part of urban design, it establishes new connections within urban entities to elevate full city potential. That is, city's full potential is elevated through the kind of new connections that you can establish through the perspective of urban design. The third thing is that urban design deploys a participatory mode from program formulations to post-implementation management. This is a very critical factor, even though most of our master plans across the country talk about participatory planning. It's designed in such a way that after the planning decisions are made, people are given a finished cast in stone kind of plan and ask them to participate in its implementation. by then, a lot of the damage that can be done is already done by the plan, and people are in no position to move fundamental decisions. This is why the participatory process has to actually begin in the program formulation stage, which is what I have learned from this competition, that the engagement of the people in the program formulation of the whole project was very critical. And I'm hoping that once the implementation begins, it would also remain as critical and as central to the quality of life that we'll generate in the environment. Now, it also integrates through a new structure diverse urban assets into the lived experience of the city. That is, there are large number of diverse assets within a site. If you take the Mullacherry Canal project, you have humongous numbers of diverse uses which are being brought together through the movement lines and by the line of the water. And then they are all integrated into a design solution that will enhance the lived experience of the city. Now, through innovation and technology, the urban design competition deploys an ideation process derived from the urban context. Now, what makes it very distinctly different from a planning regulation, which normally bases itself on standards which are established either abroad or either here or are globally shared, whichever form it is. Standards are applied with the idea that one shoe fits all. Well, it doesn't. The solutions must emerge out of the urban context. And that's a fundamental lesson which the urban design competition actually brings out. Next, we see the urban design competitions opens up global talent pool for the benefit of the city. That is, if there is no competition opened up, I don't mean to say competition as one sees in two people competing with each other, but the idea of opening up problem solving or envisioning exercise to a larger global talent pool actually brings multiple benefits to the city. Lots of things that one could have never imagined are imagined by people across the world coming from diverse experiences and applying their own experience to the problems that one sees on the ground in the project. So this is a great benefit that a city gets out of opening up an urban design competition across the world. Now, with multiple layers of action, urban design presents separate yet interlinked functions to be implemented over time and space. I must explain this. For instance, you have multiple layers of action. You have social action that's required. You have organizational action. You have administrative action. You have action connected with various strategies of taxing and fund collection. You have strategies for participatory development. You have participation from private players, regulatory roles for the government, or participatory role for the government. And they are all interlinked in such a way in an urban design scheme that it can be implemented not in one shot or in one sequence, but in multiple spaces at multiple times. The social layer can be worked on irrespective of the conditions on the site, provided one understands the human networks which exist on the ground. So that's something which can be put in place irrespective of whether land acquisition is done, legal hurdles are solved or not. It is possible to bring people together through this urban design process to act on that specific layer. Similarly, on the services layer, which could be part of the regular municipal function. Now, in terms of flood mitigation and environmental enhancement, it would depend on a certain number of other extraneous matters like extraneous regulations, etc. And they may be more time taking in terms of implementation. But there are many other layers which can be implemented right then and there in the space that is available. So this is a great benefit that an urban design competition provides. I'll move now into the EnteKochi competition. The formulation of these boundaries were well explained by Monali in her presentation, and I will not go into the details of it, but this is the general area. This just as a reminder to all of you, those who have not seen the original competition brief. This is a reminder to inform you that these are the boundaries that were defined. And these boundaries, as you can see in a red dotted line, is actually a tentative kind of boundary. That tentativeness is a very critical thing in ensuring participatory development. If everything is cast in stone, then you are in serious trouble. Yet, when one finally goes into implementation, land ownership, property boundaries, etc., revenue boundaries, etc., would become binding. But those are the next layers that we need to unearth and then tackle time when they are unearthed. Definition of boundary is a very critical factor.
Sorry, Professor Ravindran, someone is not unmuted. Please, everybody, mute yourself if you're not speaking. There's somebody not muted. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll now move on faster. Yeah. So I think my time is kind of catching up. An integrated competition of urban design landscape, conservation, and human networks. That's the first lesson that can be drawn from the EnteKochi, specifically from the EnteKochi competition. This is what makes it stand apart from other competitions, that it looks at all these three components, that is the natural system, the man-made system, and the human networks as one integrated whole. Now, strong interface between water, land, and activities, touching multiple uses and neighborhoods, whether it's the stadium or the law college or the bazaar or the informal markets or the water systems or an abandoned Jewish cemetery. They're all touched in a way through design by these schemes. Plus the neighborhoods which are adjoining these areas are subjected to design. Now we have the potential to integrate three modes of transport, that is rail, road, and waterways, which has been integral to the way the program for this project has been defined. It rededicates the urban space for pedestrians while mixing leisure, commerce, and chance encounter. This last component, that is the chance encounter, is a very critical factor for developing an amiable urbanity. And when I say an amiable urbanity, that means people who are walking the streets feel free to look in the eye of another person, feel free to start opening a conversation with a stranger, because there is a level of comfort and ownership about the space. So that is the ultimate goal of a well-designed pedestrian movement, is that you put people at ease. Therefore, the urban space endears itself to them. That endearment is a very important component of the pedestrianization process. Now it refocuses on women's network in differing spheres of economic and social activity. This has also been a very unique component of this EnteKochi exhibition, EnteKochi competition, in which this was a very specifically identified area of design. And I can say that some of the competitors, especially the ones who won the first prize, have dealt with this particular issue in a very commendable way. Now, the competition uses urban design to regulate the relationship between the user group by enhancing access within the CBD. That's within the CBD itself, there are kind of, there are cul-de-sacs, metaphorically speaking, cul-de-sacs into which activities are just contained. Whereas the urban design scheme here in the EnteKochi competition tries to open them up and correlate them in such a way that it becomes the one unified experience of the central business district. It revitalizes the heart of vernaculum with surface water management, urban services, and neighborhood level social amenities. This has also been well played out in some of the schemes, particularly in scheme 1 and 2, that these were very well played out. These issues were well played out. However, there are other issues which I'd like to raise through the discussion regarding these aspects. Now, it opens up the potential for a center city waterfront development, which is a very rare thing, that is integrating the center city as a subsequent urban layer from the waterfront development. That potential exists in this project. It opens up the potential for neglected city assets to contribute to a new image structure for the city center as a place for people. It's able to draw in a large number of disjuncted uses, like neighborhoods which have been disjuncted from the center. The project is able to draw them into a cohesive whole and create a cogent urban experience. And that is a new place for people. Multifunctional entities and ideas are designed to coexist. They are not designed to separate. They're not separated like in a land use plan is based on the idea of division and not allowing things to flow into each other. But an urban design proposal brings these multifunctional entities and ideas into a coexistence, that is, coalesce them into one entity, which then contributes to the totality of the urban experience. Now, pragmatic design program and flexible implementation schemes, implementable schemes. This is another very interesting thing that came out of this EnteKochi competition. It's not, the competition is not such a one in which you say you have to implement all together in the right sequence that we are going to draw up. Otherwise, there will be no scheme. Whereas the EnteKochi scheme gives you the potential to have flexible, implementable schemes which can be developed at different spaces of time and space, depending on the kind of encounters it has on the site, on the ground. Now, it addresses the key issues of waterlogging, waterfront, and heritage assets to holistically reinvent the role of the CBD. Normally, the CBD in its original classical or kind of, I don't want to call it classical, in its original invented method, was largely addressing the issues of business. That's why it's called Central Business District. Now, the business of being in a city is very different from the business as commerce. So this particular scheme brings in a large number of heritage assets, issues of waterlogging, waterfront development, etc., together to create a more holistic experience of a central business district, which is not purely based on the vibrancy of its commerce, but also on entertainment, on leisure, on walkability, on networking, on retail markets, the whole lot of issues which are thrown up in any urban center. Now, the multidisciplinary jury structure, which was designed particularly for this project, I must commend GIZ for doing this, for putting together a multidisciplinary team of jury members, ranging from urban design to social scientists, to political theorists, to social commentators, to administrators. The whole range of people are involved as jury. And that was actually able to, this jury was in this case able to deal with the complexity of the program contents. It's very important that you get this multidimensional jury when you confront a complex program like that of EnteKochi. This is all, the spirit of the whole competition is in this diagram that's made here. That is reintegrating the natural and the built environments and the human networks in such a way that they become mutually nurturing in their nature. That's my last slide. I want to commend the Cochin Corporation and Kochi as a whole by this slide. Kochi has actually been a pioneer in urban design competitions. I'm sure many of you are aware of it. The Marine Drive project was the first urban design competition, perhaps in its scale and complexity in the whole country. So it was back in 1974 that the Marine Drive project was taken up. Competition was floated. And I had the good fortune of working with the winning entry of Professor Kuldeep Singh, that time I was a student of urban design. And as a student, I worked on this competition with him in 1974. So that is the first urban design competition that was floated in the whole of the country as a competition. Then we have the Cochin International Airport, which was floated in 1993, of which also I was a member of the jury of this Cochin Airport. So the airport project was such a complex project. It was not just about a landing strip and a terminal to receive passengers. It was about developing a whole conceptual frame of an extended area, and things like land pooling were introduced for the first time in this airport back in 1993. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the jury. Now, the third thing is this EnteKochi competition, which happened in 2020, which we have just now been talking about. You're all aware of its multidimensional thing. But one interesting thing is that the Marine Drive competition would not have been possible today because it is done on reclaimed land. That reclamation would have been a terrible idea in the current perspective. At the same time, the Cochin International Airport was in fact built on the riverbed of the Periyar River. That's why we have such horrendous flooding in that airport. And there's no getting away from it. It's a fact that we have to face. But if you look at the EnteKochi competition, it is actually tried to mitigate. It's trying to mitigate. It's as if it's atoning for these sins of the earlier competitions, that is attempting to deal with the issue of flooding in a more holistic and cohesive way. So there is a progression here from a kind of a complete no-no type of acquisition land to a no-no type of developing an airport on a riverbed, and then moving on to the EnteKochi program, which actually addresses the issue from the side of the water and not from the side of the city. So there is a progression here, and I must congratulate Kochi for being the pioneers in all these three competitions. They have pioneered the issue of urban design competitions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ravindran. I don't know if it's possible to clap virtually here on Zoom. I hope we can do that. So a big applause to you. Thank you so much. That was fantastic, so fruitful. I actually wrote down so many words you mentioned. People were in center, humans, the users, even gender balance. You're still sharing the screen, Professor Ravindran?
Yes.
So participation, which is also like the core of the EnteKochi process. And you even mentioned management and innovation. Yeah, this is also something we try to include now in the manual, like how to manage even processes like that. And yeah, and since time is short, and I think the discussion can be taken forward in the panel discussion, I just want to say what I take from your presentation is that one shoe does not fit all, and that urban design competitions could support to make shoes flexible to diverse feet. So big thank you. We hope you stay in the call. We hope you can be part of the panel discussion. Super. And with this, I would like to hand over to Georg Jansen, the head of the project Sustainable Urban Development Smart City from GIZ India. And Georg will moderate the panel session and also introduce the panelists to you. And I will be a little bit in the back and check your questions in the chat. So please feel free to put questions in the chat. But with this, Georg, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I can hear you. I hope you can hear me. Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
And maybe, Samita, you can spotlight Georg and all the panelists so we see you all on the screen. Super. Thanks.
Yeah. So after this impressive presentation, we are now moving on to an interactive format with various speakers. And I'm looking at this group of experts, makes me excited about the next 45, 50 minutes. So first, you enjoy now all the fun listening to a German guy mispronouncing Indian names when I introduce especially the Indian speakers, right? I welcome Dr. Rajan Chedambat. He, you know it already, and you have seen him already. He is the director of CHED and part of the EnteKochi process from the very first moment. And of course, the central person, the central figure when it comes about urban planning in Kochi. I welcome Girija Devi. She is a superintendent engineer, RTD, LSGD, worked as engineer in Kochi Corporation more than 20 years and works as a senior consultant in Kochi Metro Limited, residing at Ernakulam. I welcome Dr. Benjamin Potayil Varki. He's a landscape architect and environmental planner holding a 44-year-long practice in Kochi. He has a PhD in environmental planning and a master's in landscape architecture. He's an accredited land use expert and accredited environmental impact assessment and coordinator of large buildings and townships and area development, accredited by the Ministry of Environment, Government of India. Am I still audible?
Yes, very much.
Yes, Georg, you're still audible.
Perfect. I welcome Urmila Raja Diaksha. She is a landscape architect based in Mumbai with 31 years of experience, especially in urban landscapes. Her expertise lies in working in precincts where the new intersects the old. She has worked with governmental organizations at various levels, ranging from civic bodies to ministries, as well as non-profits and funding agencies. Her work has been awarded by UNESCO. Presently, for the past 5 years, she is the founding head of the Department for Landscape Architecture at the LS Rahija School of Architecture, the first master's program in landscape architecture in Mumbai. I welcome Professor Sashwat Bandyopadhyay. He is an urban planning professional with advanced qualifications in climate resilient urban development and infrastructure planning in secondary cities. He has a PhD in climate resilience practices and presently is a senior professor in urban infrastructure program at the Sept University in Ahmedabad. Welcome, Sashwat. And last but not least, I welcome Dr. Zafinowa from Germany. She is an urban planner and worked in a German planning firm for almost 10 years. She was part of the EnteKochi process as consultant and works now as a researcher at the City Science Lab at Hafen City University, Hamburg in Germany. A very warm welcome, Sophie, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Can we see all you guys together? Is that possible?
Yeah, that would be great. And please, people, mute yourself if you're not speaking. There is still some background noise from one ID. Okay. And we were wondering, Dr. Rajan, are you still in the call?
Okay.
So, Dr. Benjamin is here. So if we can spotlight the panelists, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Otherwise, in order, Sophie, perfect.
Mr. Benjamin, Dr. Benjamin, Urmila, hello.
Hello. That works great. Sashwat, yes, now we have it, perfect. I would like to start with my first question. Let's dive into this. Let's take a look at the benefits and bottlenecks of urban design competitions. Maybe first, Professor Sashwat, from your point of view, could you describe some of the main benefits and the main bottlenecks of urban design competitions from your point of view?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, and good evening, everyone from Ahmedabad. And thanks, Georg and Charlotte, for organizing this. And see, I think we just heard Professor Ravindran, and he had adequately highlighted the benefit part of this urban design competition. And the way I think I have been looking at this competition being rolled out from Eyes in the Canal in Chennai and also in EnteKochi, I see the benefits are apparently quite apparent. And I see there are a lot of positive vibes and implication of this initiative. Now, there are certain challenges and that I'd like to bring forth to this entire community, because as we have initiated and we see a lot of benefits, but how do you, the first challenge of localizing or mainstreaming in our urban development procurement purposes. For example, if you all have seen Professor Ravindran's last slide, which was really good, 74, 93, and 2020, that clearly showed that although Kochi took the leadership in introducing urban design competition for the Kochi Marine Drive area, but it has not really able to mainstream. And that's the one challenge, I think, given the benefits. How does a traditional procurement process in any of our urban local bodies allow these new ideas to flow in, and that gets embedded in this process? That's number one. The second challenge is that how to ensure quality of this urban design proposal, because at times we often see that urban design proposals, and as you know, in traditional Indian way of doing projects is called DPRs. So that there is this amount of disconnect presently from an urban design competition ideas and to translate into a kind of a detailed project report, which is understood by the implementation and execution agency. And that's the challenge we continue to see in various parts of cities and India. So we a urban design competition output will put forth certain brilliant thoughts and suggestions, translating that ideas and framing it in certain standard procedure would require a certain amount of hand-holding and guiding. And therefore, and as you know, many cities, and particularly the recipient organization, we have certain shortage of manpower in terms of understanding and deconstructing this proposal for implementation. So that's the number two. That's the challenge. I think we need to look at it and take it forward. The third aspect of it, and this is for our community of urban planner and urban designer, because whenever we see, there is a tendency to see water sensitivity on the surface of it. And many proposals, whenever we are talking about kind of on water sensitive urban design, so it also have to see what is below the earth. And that requires a certain amount of geohydrology and certain angle, which many of that assessment often, so the proposal at the surface looks quite brilliant. And so, for example, if you look at some of the examples of Swan City in Berlin, and the team, if you deconstruct the team, you'll realize much of the team also is supported by the geohydrologist, and is sufficient amount of geohydrology, climatic assessment also required. So some of these thematic areas need certain probing in terms of certain different lens. So I think that rigorous assessment after the proposals are done need to be taken forward. So these are three my immediate what I see, how do you localize it as a mainstream procurement process. The second aspects of the capacity of the urban local body, you require certain amount of sensitization, because most of the urban local body, you will come across traditional engineers who are dealing with, who are no training to understand this proposal. So you need to bridge that connect and disconnect between the DPR and competition ideas. Thank you, and over to you, Yo.
Thank you so much, Shashwat. I would like to, hand over this similar question to you, Sophie, giving also an international perspective to this. You have been part of this process here in Kochi, but you also know the environment in Germany. So from your perspective, what are the benefits and bottlenecks of such urban design competitions from your point of view?
Yes, thank you, Georg. Yeah, I think it's quite important to take into account that the instrument of an open design competition or an urban design competition, it's to gain new and as well unexpected ideas, which have the potential for innovation. I think it's really the idea to open up the field, not only to contract the most famous office in urban planning, in architecture, to open up the field to as well young and not known offices. I think that's really important, and to be open in what kind of ideas you will get. So this is a benefit, but I think it's as well a risk, because it's a risk that the quality of ideas or designs are not that good as maybe the organizer thought, or something like that. But I think in the urban design competition in Kochi, it was a really good procedure, because there was this idea of opening up this process by the urban design competition, but as well by having 3 offices in the process of developing DPRs and developing the overall master plan. So I think that's a really interesting addition to an open design competition that we did in Kochi and as well in Coimbatore, and there's always a learning. So I think it's a really important instrument, and it's important to take into account that, yeah, it's a really complex process, and you need to embed it. So you need, as we have in Kochi, you need a strong partner or organizer, as we have with CHEAD, and the support of the mayor, because this is important, because this is on the other page, that you have the implementation phase. And this implementation phase is after the design competition. It's after having the DPRs. And I think it's really important to have all these stakeholders on board to really work with them. And from Germany, we have good examples in urban design competitions, but I think it's the same in India. It's just about having a really transparent procedure, and to have all the stakeholders on board to really believe in these projects and project ideas.
Thank you so much, Sophie. That is the perfect sort of, it leads to the next question that I would like to ask Mrs. Girija Devi. So looking at the process of urban design competitions, knowing that it's also a long process that takes additional time, from your point of view, what are success factors to implement this process in the overall planning process that we anyway have for certain areas? And what is then the right outcome? You are muted.
Yes, good evening all. This first, actually in first time, such a fantastic competition and design product we have seen, because different people are interacted, and a good design product we obtained. So for the in earlier stage, we are implementing things according to 1 or 2 persons involvement. Now good planners are involved, and we got a good ideas and a good product and good project report also. So the first time in India, in Kerala or in Kochi, we have seen this type of competition. It was done very transparently. So the implementation, if they are implementing anything, there are a lot of issues occurred. And in that area, Mulasheri Canal area, there are a lot of encroachments. The sewerage system, we have to consider sewerage system, stormwater drain, tidal effect. The soil is also impermeable soil, aquifer, not an aquifer. So that's also we have to consider. 60% of clay. Recharge is also very difficult. But they're gone through all this type of constraints, and they studied well in the site also. So we get a good product, good design. And one thing you have to know, the fund flow. If we are implementing, we have to think about the fund flow, also the maintenance. If we have done a project, the maintenance is also to be considered. Then another thing is the shortage of parking, that also included in this. There gives more focus on this type of parking difficulty, because the Military Canal is passing through the heart of the city, and all drains are drain out to this Military Canal. Also, the length is only 1.3 kilometers, but there are a lot of constraints: a railway line, sea, and traffic system, bunk shop. That's also considered, and we have to give more importance to greenery, to planting trees, greenery gardening. That type also considered, and different planets are give good input for this designing. And there are one thing we have to consider is the if we are giving a design, there are, we do not go for an integrated approach. When we are going through this DPR, there's an integrated approach is there, and they are looking for short-term and long-term implementation stage. This perspective view, they prepared a good perspective view. So when we are implementing this, we have to implement some short-term project, short-term infrastructure. Then we go to long-term. That's also the main problem in Kochi. If we are constructing any infrastructure, the maintenance is the main problem. So we have to give importance to maintenance also. So if we are preparing a DPR or a project or design, we have, when we are called for a tender, we have to consider the maintaining part. For 10 years or 15 years, it has to maintain by one party. Otherwise, there is no authority for any infrastructure. There is one authority, there is a flow. We have to consider planning, and performance-based maintenance contract is good. That's another is the we have to, when we are planning this type of project, we have to consider all infrastructure facility available in the area. Actually, they in this design, they've considered all open spaces, the nearby open spaces, and the important infrastructure facilities, institutions. There are a lot of institutions there. That's also considered. Actually, this is good for our Kochi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
My next question goes to Dr. Benjamin. You know, a number of professionals feel that design competitions have a weakness also, a flaw, because many people think that they generate sort of a wastage in teams' efforts, right? And the process, after we publish the design brief, we have probably 100, 150 teams working on this. And then in the end, we have only 3 winners. So sort of a lot of work, a lot of brain power is wasted. And how do you see that? What is your view on this critique?
I don't know whether you are in the project. You are considered the impact of the tidal movement. In the tidal movement, there is tidal action in the tidal canal every 12 hours 25 minutes. There is a high tide and low tide in that much interval. And I don't know whether you have studied the history of the evolution of Mullassery Canal, how it was formed, what was its earlier conditions. It's a history. I think that such things have not been taken considered in this project. Because in the original maps, in the old maps, I have got the city, all the city maps, the old survey maps. There is no canal as such, Mullassery Canal reaching the backwater system. It ends up somewhere, I think, in the MG Road area. in a paddy field there. There was a paddy field there. There was two canals. One is Tevara Canal, and there is Perandur Canal. Those canals were independent, and there was a eastern and west going arm of the Perandur Canal. That was the Mulassery Canal originally. Then later it was linked to the backwater system. And you know that when the tidal flow comes from Tevara and also from maybe Mulassery Canal is deepened and it is connected, the flow direction is changed to western side, eastern side. Now it is flowing to the side, but if it link, what will happen? The tidal inflow will come both from the through the Mulassery Canal and also from the Tevara Canal. Both the flow will meet somewhere in the middle portion around behind the central school or that area. When that comes, there will be again there is an oscillation of the tidal waters within that stretch. When the oscillation is there, automatically there will be silting up. When silting up is there, you have to go for dredging, and it may create waterlog. Maybe I don't know, that may be possible. I don't know, such tidal fluctuations and tidal movement and flow of water was considered in this project. I think it is not considered. Only you are thinking about the three-dimensional thing only, but the temporal aspects have to be considered. The temporal only not only spatial, or not only three-dimensional, there is a fourth dimension called time and this fluctuation in the water movement. That is to be evaluated. Another thing is with respect to the planting and all the vegetation part, the landscaping and all this. I don't know what they have suggested, but I was involved in the implementation of the Marine Drive scheme. I joined almost at the time of the starting of the implementation of a Marine Drive scheme and the first was Spark. I was working with the GCDA for 30 years. I joined around 76 or so. And during the implementation was going on. And Rajavel and Pradeep Singh, they both jointly did the work of that. And Rajavel was the landscape architect. When he did the thing, he has done the problem. He suggested a lot of alien plants which flourishes in that area. And those plants will not survive here. So the landscaping also, you have to be very clear that the plants you suggest belongs to the place. It is adapted to the Kerala condition, not Kerala condition, the coastal condition also, where there is salinity intrusion is there. In one of the studies I have done about the temporal and spatial migration of the tidal waters, and we found that this tidal flow is almost blocked in the Tevara Canal. This Tevara Canal and the Tevara-Perandur Canal never existed because Tevara Canal ends where it turns to this Mulassery Canal, and the Perandur Canal ends somewhere in the northern side of the railway line. So there is no link, and now there people want to link it, but it cannot be linked because the tidal water from Tevara side and Perandur Canal meet here. Now we are bringing in the inflow from the through the Mulassery Canal also. All these things will bring there. Then by the time the tidal water reach there will be down the ebb flow of the tidal waters. That means all these waters will get to move up and down. It won't go out of the backwater, the tidal canals, but it will go on oscillating within a small stretch of maybe 1 kilometer or so. So the wastes and the water, sewage, sewage, water coming into that stretch will never go out. So
right.
That's what, but that I feel. If that is so, I think you have to address such things instead of going for three-dimensional beautification and all those things, spaces and all those things.
Right.
It's temporal. Yeah. That is time factor. The time change in the climatic, not the astronomical tides and all those things have to be considered. That is I think there is a serious problem with respect to this area.
Right. Thank you, sir.
I don't know
for the insight on the area of Mulassery Canal. I want to now go into the area of the role of the academia. Urmila, to you the question, how are these urban design competitions, this tool, how is it perceived in the area of the academic training?
1 minute.
That's one question, and also I think it came even now from the audience. The question:
can you repeat the question?
You did YouTube videos about this, and how was the several episodes? How was this perceived in your faculty? So this idea of urban design competitions and linking this to the training of young planners in India. Urmila, over to you.
Thank you, Kyo, and thank you for having me here. It's always good to be with the EnteKochi team. So actually, from our vantage point at Mumbai, maybe I'm speaking about academia in Mumbai, as in outside Kochi. What we found very interesting was the emphasis that you gave for process. Because process with capital P's all down is what we try to imbibe into our students during the training that we give them. And it was this actually that attracted us to the competition that happened, and the fact that it happened through difficult times, and also, evoked a huge response. So what we found is that the training and the expectation of how you look at a project is the flexibility, the collaboration, the participatory aspect. This was something which was reflected in the way your competition process unfolded, right from the earlier year when you had your pre-process to the actual competition and to the post-process of the competition as well. Because in many competitions that we see conducted in our country, like Professor K.T. Ravindran said, the competition and the winner end up being the hero of the project, which we feel kind of, limits what happens. So we kind of feel it like a reaffirmation of what we try to put into our students. And it actually, happens, because that's a question that we often face from our students. That look, yes, we do all this process, but does this really happen in real life? So that was what EnteKochi demonstrated for us. And that's why we went into the process of looking at those videos. And it was very interesting and eye-opener for many of our faculty as well, because we do not really accept yet in our country that this can happen in India. Perhaps it's a wrong way of looking at things, and we should start looking at it the other way around. But this was something which came to us across from our faculty, from our students, and in fact from many other viewers who looked into these. So it was an interesting experience all around. And well, that's my view, our view from academia in Mumbai. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Urmila. Before coming to my next question, I would like to quickly talk to the audience who's out there. Please, I want to encourage you to post your questions in the chat box, and then Charlotte and the backup team will browse through them, and then maybe we can have some of these questions also. So type your questions if you have any. And then is Dr. Rajan there? I have a question for you, if you're still on board.
No, unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not. Maybe coming back to you, Girija, where do you see in the process the biggest barriers, the biggest hurdles to conduct an urban design competition? From a community, from a local politician, from an administration point of view. So, yeah.
Yes, this is a democratic place, so some political influences is here, and we have to take actually in the process the local community. You have to convince the local community their needs, and government also needs to play a role in developing all infrastructure. So we have to consider the local municipal council and municipal mayor, corporation mayor also. Actually, in this process, they give more input and they encourage for this process. In each stage, there is a lot of consultation. I also attended different consultations and different meetings. So local study, local people's needs, they're studied very well without knowing the local people's plan and the local insight what is going on. Actually, Benjamin sir said there is a tidal influence. This is a tidal influence, and it is actually a river basin. It's a waterlogged area. So the peoples know what to do because there are a lot of small houses. One colony is also there. So we have to give importance to that people also without affecting their livelihood or their commutation. It is also thickly populated and traffic also highly potential area, commerce, it is a CBD area. So we have to give special attention to this area. And another problem is the scarcity of land. We know the land is the development, it's the platform for all development, but we have no public. One problem is there is no public land here, very less public land. We have to take that. That's also a concern. Land acquisition is not possible there. So the available land, there are a lot of land and some park there. Then one college is also there. You have to kind of stand area for developing. That area is also to be developed.
My next question goes to Sophie and Sashwat, maybe Germany and India. You know, looking at the outcome of an urban design competition, it has a huge range, right? It can be that I expect a rough idea or bright ideas, out of the box, innovative ideas with less level of detail, or it can all the way go to to an outcome that already shows me engineering details and stuff like that, right? Very well into urban design details, for example. And as a planner, we can steer this process by formulating the design brief and influencing the jury, the people in the jury, and so on. But what do you think? I don't know if there's even a general answer to this, but what would be a good outcome of an urban design competition? And then also in brackets, what would be a bad? Maybe first, Sophie, from your perspective, Germany.
Okay, I think it always depends a little bit on if you have an open design competition, so you open it up to everybody who wants to appoint, or if you have a closed design competition, so you can as well just invite 10 officers, so you can really more get into detail. So I think with our competition in Kochi, we got already really good results because we opened it up, and so you get these innovative ideas. So I think this is a good outcome, but I think you always have to take into account that this is just the beginning. This is just a starting point, and you have to develop it further. And so I think a good outcome is when you get new ideas, unexpected ideas, and you can work with those ideas and you can detail those further. You always have different questions and they have technical stuff to take into account. But I think this is something that you can do as well in a later level, that you can develop your DPR process and report and then detail those ideas out. At first, it's about getting really new ideas, trying things out, in my opinion.
So, yeah. Strong suggestion not to go too much into details, but rather put this in a later stage. Sashwat, what's your perspective from India?
I think this is a very interesting question, York, and I would also agree what Sophie is saying. The idea of this urban design competition is to capture new and fresh ideas, and moving towards too much of detailing may actually, may lose the essence of the core idea. But having said so, from the experiences of some of the recent urban design competition in India, I would strongly recommend that we develop a kind of a guideline or a guidebook in terms of a kind of a life cycle of this urban design competition. Meaning that, that this is, we are capturing the initial ideas, and after the initial ideas have been captured, and then we move forward to certain lenses. For example, what Dr. Benjamin said, and I know about it in various coastal areas, the coastal ecosystem is hugely complex, and particularly the tidal aspect or hydrological aspects. And that's not the domain in many of our urban design school or their students are trained on. Okay, so you have a very interesting idea, But then once the idea is captured, then the idea is then taken through certain lenses and looked at and so it is verified and understood it well. And then probably you need certain training, capacity building of our municipal or the implementation agencies particularly. Because my concern here that I have a brilliant idea, but I don't have an implementer to take that idea forward. So there are a couple of bottlenecks. I think Girija Devi mentioned about finance, how to link one aspect of it, the technical aspect of this urban design ideas, because how to take it up with the tidal and ground and all this aspect. The second aspect, how do we link it with the financial agencies? Like how does a bank or a financial agency and authority looks at it in terms of that? The third aspect, which is a very important aspect, we must also that we need to also build capacity of the implementing agency. And there I see a major challenge both with the urban design and landscaping proposal, and also we are facing a lot about urban planning proposal, that this idea when it goes to an implementing agency, then you need certain sensitization. So I think these are the areas where we need to, so to answer your question, you're starting with the concept and very brief ideas, but it needs a urban design competition cycle, which has to be understood that this needs to be built up to get it implementation. And that guidebook in understanding both from the implementing agency and also as I coming from the academia and practitioners angle, many of our practitioners are yet not ready how to participate there. So you have to also prepare to, what are you expected, what are they expected to contribute by participating in this. So these needs a certain amount of advocacy, and I see a kind of experiences of this, what I know from Chennai, Coimbatore and EnteKochi. I would request your team to take it forward in form of certain maybe toolkit, guidebook, which is easy to understand, or a playbook to take this idea forward. But it's an excellent idea, and I think we must invest into making it happen and mainstream. Thanks, and over to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sashwat. So now we have 5 more minutes coming closely to an end, and we have some interesting questions from the audience. I hand over to you, Charlotte.
Yes, thanks, Georg. It's 2 types of questions. So some questions are very EnteKochi specific. I would like to start with more general ones. And as far as it's more comments and some questions. So, but all of them are actually touching this field of transparency. Some, like one person said that some competitions are manipulated. One participant says that it would be great to have an unbiased and non-political solution to urban issues. So this whole field of, I would say, transparency and processes. And I think it would fit perfectly to this discussion because we talked about bottlenecks and chances. And Sophie actually mentioned this transparent process of an urban design competition. So it's not really questions, but I think we should pick this topic up. How can processes be more transparent? How can the tool of urban design competitions help to include actually everybody in such process?
I think that's an interesting question. To me, this is linked to standards, right? From Germany, I know, and I could share with you, we have standards for such kind of processes that I think they are with the chambers of architects. And whenever we have a public process of such an urban design competition, we can refer to these standard processes. It's like an ISO standard, if you want, right? So there may be the question to our Indian colleagues, would that be something for India to introduce such a standard, or is there already something? Who would like to answer this?
I'll just take up this question. This question is very interesting, York, that just to say that there is no such standard and as a national level, and that standard is definitely kind of an important way forward to at the national level, so that then they get calculated in the state level. But I saw there was a very interesting question about Anuj, who has talked about that, is it a kind of a pure, unbiased and non-political solution for the urban context? And I think that has a tremendous merit to look at it, because urban solutions are much complex, and it demands certain kind of a, kind of a political discourses. It's not merely a technical competition, because that. So whenever we are evaluating, a technical experts are evaluating, and that has merit. But it also a political process that needs to be understood, and I think that's a very, very important perspective which has been shared. Similarly, the participation, the role of participation before, during, or after a design process is taken up. Generally, what happens we see is that before the process, there are a lot of consultation. During the process and the competition, evaluation, jury, the participation becomes more technical. So how you make it, more kind of an open-ended, open source where the comments are given. So I see this 2-3 very important comment that has been come in this. Thanks, and over to you, Jörg.
I would like to add one more point.
If you permit me. The question that, if you'll permit, can I, Mr. Benjamin, or do you want to go ahead? Just one sentence. This is in relation to the question that Georg asked me earlier about how our students and faculty responded. So Anuj Gudekar, who asked the question that Shashwat highlighted, is one of our students. So this has come about through those discussions. Over to you, Mr. Benjamin.
I would get you, but once again.
You could go ahead, Mr. Benjamin, if you want. I just wanted to highlight that Anuj was one of our students. And because of the engagement we had with the EnteKochi, these questions come from those backgrounds and our processes as well. Thank you.
I would like to add one more thing. What in the competitions, there should be a clause that rehabilitation of the affected people because of a urban design project also should be included in the competition aspects. And unless one is able to propose the method of rehabilitating the affected people, the design is never going to be implemented. It cannot be implemented. So the rehabilitation plan also should be part of the design. Any competition, it should be a part. Because the competition is for an project which is to be implemented. Especially in Kerala, it will create a lot of problem from the public if there is no proper rehabilitation plan.
You're on mute.
May I?
Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Benjamin. Well taken that point. So to also highlight the need of a plan how to implement the ideas. As a last statement,
Georg, Professor Ravindran.
Oh.
And I think Dr. Ravindran just wanted to say something as well.
Okay, first Sophie, she has raised her hand, and then Dr. Ravindran, please.
Yeah, I will do it quite short. I think it's really important because in the case of Kochi and Coimbatore, from Urbanista side, we had a little bit this role of setting up this standards from Germany, and I think it's always a little bit a point of discussion. So which are the standards in India, which are the standards in Germany, to translate those. But I think it worked quite well, like having a pre-assessment team. They reviewed all the entrance, all the design entrance. So they had, like as Monolita explained before, they had like a really strong procedure in this. So having this pre-assessment team, having as well a declaration of confidentiality in the jury. So I think these are really important standards that we try to implement in the EnteKochi process. And I think what's really good is that we now have our manual where we have all those checkboxes, how we can set up and design competition step by step, and we guide through that. And so I think it's really adaptable to different contexts, and that works fine. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sophie. thumbs up. Ravindran, over to you.
Yeah, I have, I want to comment on 2-3 issues which have been raised. First thing about this allegation that, or somebody has suggested a doubt that competitions are often rigged. I think it's very unfair suggestion to make here, particularly because I, as chairman of the jury, am completely aware of the kind of rigor, in fact, humongous amount of rigor that went into the formulation of this whole process in this EnteKochi competition, both from the guidelines that you had prescribed from the German side, as well as the enormous amount of effort that's been put in by the local teams, as well as by us. I have personally spent something like a minimum of 8 to 9 man days on scrutinizing the schemes. I've been through all the 117 schemes which have been submitted inch by inch and have shortlisted and enhanced the shortlisting process. So, and to suggest that it has been unfair, I think is somewhat unfounded. That's the first thing. And second thing is that I don't think that we should be working by standards, particularly standards which are applied in Germany and standards which can be applied here will be completely different because of the diversity of the kind of environment that we work in. So I think the idea of a standard is in fact not really relevant for the Indian condition. Having said that, I'll move on to the next issue. I think what was raised by Mr. Benjamin was in fact a very relevant issue. If you look at but there are not only the question of managing the local flooding systems, but also there are larger issues, much larger issues. If you look at the whole landscape of Kerala, Kerala is now pounded by rain and rushing water from the mountains and the impending problem of sea level rise. Sea level rise is the big elephant in the room. Nobody has addressed that issue, and it's not that we have any control over that issue. But if you start looking at the global temperature going up beyond 2, as discussed in the current discussion that we've just had in the COP21, COP26 discussion that we've had, we have not really measured the kind of impact a place like Kochi is going to have. Kochi will probably go underwater. I'm sorry to say this, but it will probably almost entirely go underwater. And any effort that we do now may not have a life more than 20 or 30 years. Beyond that, there is going to be sea level rise, as well as we are going to have larger and higher rainfalls. So Kerala is pounded from both sides, from the mountain and from the sea. The state is facing its threat. And there is a very interesting parallel microcosm on our side. We have the flooding that's happening along the railway line because of the construction of the railway line, in fact, in many cases, and the connection of Mullasheri Canal going to the backwaters. On one hand, there is higher rainfall and higher accumulation of water near the railway line that is flowing towards the west now. And there is a sea level rise that's going to happen and impact the level of water in the backwaters. So Mullasheri Canal is actually caught in the same dilemma as the state of Kerala is caught in. This is a very much larger issue, and asking for a solution to this in an urban design competition is perhaps not really well placed, in my view, because it's like asking an eye doctor, asking a dentist to do an eye operation. Yeah, it uses totally different instruments, totally different know-how. It's a totally different context in which the problem needs to be addressed. So I feel that it is certainly a very important question, but perhaps it's not relevant in a competition of this nature, unless the problem was posited in that manner to begin with in our issue, where they have to start solving this flood problem. That means they'll have to go to issues of climate crisis and look at the larger pertinent issues that will flow from the climate crisis. I think that is perhaps not relevant for this condition. Now, apart from this, I think some of the questions that came up many of the questions that came up were actually looking at a non-political solution. But I feel that it's, the academia has been closing our eyes to the idea, to the truth that urban development is a political issue. Land is a political entity. It's not something that you can divorce from the local political climate. It certainly is bound by it. So it's a clearer understanding of this and how to protect the larger good within the crisis of a politically formulated development process. That is the solution. And that I think the kind of solutions that we have found in the selected schemes, 3 schemes, actually brings out the potential for that kind of what you can call a politically neutralized approach by looking at, say, for instance, like the Sahodari scheme that's proposed in the first scheme, where there would be like hand-holding sisterly connections between the women entrepreneurs in the area. That's something which can be quite divorced from the local political climate. Or there are many other smaller issues which can be divorced from the local political climate. But at the same time, it's not that you have to find solutions for all of them simultaneously and we have to go from the smaller thing to the bigger or bigger to the smaller. It gives us the multiple opportunity to approach the problems with so many different sides. That is the potential that's thrown up in this competition. That we could be looking at not taking one to its complete detail. We can be doing that. Or we can be looking at a general issue that has been thrown up. Because all those opportunities are presented in the projects. To that extent, I think this has been a very unique exercise in the competition. I'll conclude with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravindran. I think, yeah, we are already 10 minutes over time. Dr. Rajan and the mayor have excused themselves. They had something urgent that came up. I hand over to you, Charlotte. You have 2 answers for questions. Quickly.
There were 2 questions very quickly to the EnteKochi process. So one question from Kurin and one from Anuj. I hope I pronounced your names right. So one question was about if the public or the local level was involved in the jury process, and the answer is yes. There have been 1 jury member from the local user resident side, and the other question was about also the narrative of local participation. And before the competition, there was a big EnteKochi Phase 0 event, a participation process where local people have been involved in the whole process of developing ideas for an urban design competition. So that's all from my side. Yeah, and also I also have to convey the apologies from Dr. Rajan and the mayor. They won't make it for the final remarks, and therefore I would like to hand over to Georg to say some closing words and give this little outlook to this event. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Charlotte. With this, I close this panel. Thank you so much to the panelists for a good discussion and lively discussion. Thanks a lot. And yeah, I will conclude the whole session with an outlook to the second phase of the Svdsc project. At the moment, we are drafting the last sentences of the proposal with our German ministry. And then hopefully by 1st of January, the second phase of this project will continue for another 3 years at least. And I'm happy to share with you that this tool of urban design competitions will be even mainstreamed in this project. It will be even more in the center. And we will be able not only to conduct at least 4, maybe 5 more of these design competitions, but also we dive into specific topics of urban development. For example, we could also talk about waste, making a design competition about waste management or specifically water management and things like that. also linking it with digital governance are ideas that we have in mind for the second phase. So we are really looking forward to work with our partners on this, and hopefully many of the participants of this round will then also be involved in the further process. And of course, what also we want to do is on national level with NIUA and with MOHUA, mainstreaming this tool and making it sort of accessible and available for all the cities in India. Yeah, with this, we have come to an end. Thank you so much. I also would like to highlight again this manual. So we will make this available online in the next days. So it hopefully becomes a good piece of knowledge that can be used by many practitioners all over India. Thank you so much for your attendance, and yeah, very warm welcome to all of you, and a nice evening to those in India, and lunchtime, I guess, in Germany. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.